go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, happy Monday night. Thanks for stopping by. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, TC and Friends Monday Night Musings. Mostly just going to be me. The guest that I had on was unable to make it. I don't know. He is from he's from a few episodes of the With the Benefit of Hindsight podcast by John Ziegler and Liz Habib. It is a podcast about the truth behind the Penn State debacle and what really went down there and the prosecutorial and political malfeasance that was involved. And I was going to have one of the key players in that story on tonight, and he said yes, and then he didn't get back to me. So I decided I was going to go it alone. If you've never done a live stream podcasts on your own, it's not easy to talk to yourself and assume that other people are understanding what you're saying. So here I sit, right? First, you guys, as always, make sure you're over here checking out the merchandise. Got coffee. This is the best coffee. If you're a coffee drinker, it's the best coffee you're ever going to have. It is custom roasted and blended specifically for my show by a couple who makes phenomenal coffee, and we came up with the recipe together. They put the recipe together, and then a bunch of people voted on it, and this is the one we decided to go with to start with. As with everything else right now, shipping and whatnot is very difficult, and all of their stuff is organically sourced, so the coffee is very, very organic, and so I'm waiting on a new shipment. But also got the beanies. You guys, I've had a lot of people say, "Man, I love beanies," and if you want, I'd rep your show if we had beanies. So I went out and I got some beanies made locally, Stewartville area. There's a guy who does these for me, and then all of my this merchandise right up here is also made somewhat local, Northern Iowa. The family just between Austin and Albert Lee. They make all of my stuff. And if you're interested, you can head over to mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com and let me know what you want. And I can shoot you a price and shipping. And if you live pretty close to me, there won't even be shipping because I'll just meet you somewhere. That's convenient for both of us. I also want to make you guys aware of an event that's coming up at the end of March. That event is guest speaker Liz Collins. She is a former news. I don't remember which network she was on, but she is a former newscaster in the Twin Cities area, and she recently wrote a book about what happened during the George Floyd Summer of Love in the Twin Cities. And it's called They're Lying, the Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd. And that event is taking place at the Cascade Town Hall on Tuesday, 28th of March at 6 p.m. Well, the doors open at 6 and the event starts at 7. I am working on being able to stream that out to Right America Media. We're working on trying to get that figured out. See that we can get Liz's story out, and Liz's story is going wider, but I'm trying to get it out on the network that I am the Upper Midwest regional correspondent for Red America Media. Juan Gaud is an Air Force veteran, and he decided he was going to start an alternative media platform, an alternative news platform, and we do a lot of news and commentary over there. I co-host Veteran Nation on Tuesday nights on that platform, as well as the New Right Network. So Yeah, we got a lot of things going on. And I would just really encourage you guys to, if you're in southeast Minnesota, within a couple of hours of Cascade Township Hall, I would encourage you guys to head on over there for that, um, and make yourself seen and heard. And what I mean by that is let people, show up so that Liz knows that people down in this corner of Minnesota really appreciate the fact that she's out there as a journalist telling the truth about what happened in that event. And Liz is with Alpha News now, as Wes is telling us. Um, I thought she had been with another network up there in the Twin Cities, but I could be wrong. But anyway, Liz is with Alpha News, and if you guys are familiar, Alpha News is a big alternative media platform, alternative journalism platform here in the state of Minnesota, and we're thankful for them because they are willing to tell stories that other people aren't. And they were one of the organizations that kind of broke it big when people were caught ballot harvesting for our dear native Minnesotan, born and raised Minnesotan, Ilhan Omar Johnson. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. Okay, sarcasm aside. But for those who aren't familiar, Alpha News did run with that, and they got the story out there. In a very important turn of events here in the state of Minnesota today, our esteemed commissar Tim Walz of the People's State of Marxisota uh, turned over the reins of power to his lieutenant governor Peggy Flanagan today because he was going in for a extremely important procedure, preventative health procedure here for a man at his age, around my age. He was going in for a colonoscopy, and he was going to be under a general anesthetic today. And so the reins of power were turned over to the lieutenant governor. I don't know what could possibly have gone wrong. What I do want everybody to realize is that this colonoscopy, we don't know the results of it yet, but I'm pretty sure that it did reveal that, as we've all suspected for the last almost 3.5 years, especially, they did, and this is an unreported story. They did find Governor Tim Walz's head planted firmly up his butt during the colonoscopy. They were very careful, and I don't know if the results are in yet as to whether or not they were going to try and remove his head from his butt, case a rectum. This is what you guys get when my guests don't show up. I was completely unprepared for tonight. So, one other thing they did confirm with Governor Walz's colonoscopy is they did confirm he is completely full of crap, as we have suspected. Yeah, I did that. And I'm not sorry. So, much prayer and positive thoughts for the medical team as they try to determine the best way to remove the growth of Tim Walz's head from his keister. Yes, I am making light of it. But ladies and gentlemen, or ladies and gentlemen, if you are over the age of 50 and you're not getting a colonoscopy on a regular basis, you're like me and are probably glad you don't know what you're missing. But yeah, anyway, so folks, I want to turn now, if I could, to some semi-local news here in the state of Minnesota, at least for my neck of the woods. And that is as it regards some promotions that took place in Olmsted County at the sheriff's office. Now, for those of you that don't know my story, I don't know where you've been, but with my in my situation, oh yeah, hey Chad, thanks for stopping by. Both Chads, Chad Deming and Chad Catter. Thanks for stopping by. Chad Deming reminds us that Liz worked for WCCO and CBS, and she was married to Bob Kroll, former president of I think it's the Minneapolis Police Benevolent Association. In other words, a union I think he was the president of the union for the Minneapolis Police Department. Where the esteemed and also respectable John Thompson showed up into the neighborhood where Bob Kroll lives with his brown shirts and threatened to burn the entire city of Hugo down if they didn't get Bob Kroll out. But yeah, anyway, we were gonna talk a little bit. If you don't know the story about where I worked and what I did for almost 13 years, from 2009 to September of 2021, I worked for the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office. I was a deputy within the detention center. I was not a beat cop. I wasn't a street cop. I didn't have patrol responsibilities, but I did swear an oath to the Constitution, to the Republic of the United States, and to the Constitution of the People's State of Marxist-Soda. And through the course of my career, lots of things changed for me. And not everything did, but I became firmly aware of just how nepotistic and sycophantic the law enforcement career field had become. And then I really saw the handwriting on the wall when Sheriff Kevin the Tyrant Torgerson announced to his staff, like, we're not going to be enforcing any of the governor's mandates, but that was all internal and we weren't allowed to tell anybody that. But then when I started to, on my own time, speak out against Governor Tim Walz and his edicts from on high, his unconstitutional, unlawful executive orders as they were directed at private businesses and private people here in the Republic, like as going so far as to telling people that they couldn't have visitors in their house, and that you couldn't go to your job and all that. You guys all know the story. I started to speak out in support of small business owners like Lisa Hansen and Larvina McFarquhar and Lisa Monet Zarza and Jane from up in Moorhead and others across the state of Minnesota. Well, in this particular case, the now former city attorney, prosecuting attorney for the city of Albert Lea, Kelly Dawn Martinez, who, by the way, subsequent to what she did to me, is now working for the Olmsted County Public Defender's Office. That's interesting, isn't it? But her and the chief of police in Albert Lea got upset with me and tried to turn me in. Well, didn't try. They did call the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the FBI and tried to paint me out as a radical insurrectionist type terrorist. And that went nowhere, and they filed formal complaints. Instead of standing on the oath that is, what we all swear in the law enforcement career field and public sector public servants, be they elected or appointed, Kevin Torgerson ordered Chief Deputy of Detention Services Brian Howard to come after me, and they started a over a year-long process of digging into my personal time, digging into my social media content, digging into my content on YouTube and Rumble, and they then put me under internal investigation on the 24th of February, and then on April 30th of 2021, they put me out on paid administrative leave at the conclusion of the internal investigation and everything in that. I have all the documents from not all. I have the report. I'm still waiting. The county is dragging their feet on getting everything to me that I requested, several months ago. And the reason this is really important is because Chief Deputy Brian Howard has now been given a lateral promotion to Chief Deputy of the Patrol Division, of the Law Enforcement Division. And folks, the reason that this is so disturbing, it should be so disturbing, is the reality that he did not stand up for the Constitution. He did not stand up for the freedom of speech that every single person has, and the freedom to protest that every single person has, to include his own staff, being me. And so when the sheriff ordered him to go after me, he did it. Now, why is this important, ladies and gentlemen? This is important because Brian Howard, as you can see on screen left here, is now responsible for the law enforcement side of the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office, which means this man has already demonstrated he doesn't give a damn about the Constitution. He doesn't give a damn about your natural God-granted rights as they're delineated in the Bill of Rights. And this man is now overseeing all of the people who are responsible for following up on those things with people on the street. How in the world can you people who live in Olmsted County or travel to Olmsted County or work in Olmsted County, how can you trust as you're in Olmsted County that your rights will not be violated under the color of law? How can you trust that any deputy in Olmsted County working for a man who fabricated, like lied about my conduct? They spun, they twisted the story of they twisted the accounts of what happened to make me look as bad as possible in an attempt to fire me, which they ended up not being able to do. They did start to make offers, which is why it stretched out as long as it did, because they knew they were going to lose in court, and I knew I could never go back to work for him. But this man, Brian Howard, under the orders of Kevin Torgerson, and everybody loves him, up in Olmsted. Not everybody. I've been running into more and more people who do not like him. A lot of former staff cannot stand the man, and there's a good reason why. He's a facade of a human being. His public image is so much different than how he treats people, and he really only treats people that suck up to him with any measure of decency and respect, which is why Brian Howard got promoted in the first place to Chief Deputy of Detention Services, because he had to bide his time until Chief Deputy Walensky retired, and that man was bad enough the way it was. But then he gets this lateral promotion to the road side, to the law enforcement side, and they then promote Captain Jim Schuler to Chief Deputy of Detention Services. Now, this should be a good fit. Should be, because this is where Schuler started. Schuler started on the road side, or on the detention side. He was there, I think it was from 1999, if you read this, from 1999, until 2010 or 11. And then he went to the road division, to the law enforcement patrol division. And he skyrocketed through the ranks there. Go getter. He is all about law and order, which sounds great, but he's also in tight with Torgerson, which is the only reason anybody gets a lot of the promotions that they get, is about how tight they are and how much they suck up to Torgerson. If you don't suck up to Torgerson, you don't get anything. I have a good friend. His last name doesn't matter, but his first name is Matt. Did not suck up, and they came after him over some asinine stuff. And then when you consider, too, what they did to me, and then juxtapose that, and I have a video, and I'll try to remember to link it in the description here. Kevin Torgerson and Brian Howard covered up a deputy who, when he was hired, had domestic abuse charges in his record. Now, maybe he paid his dues, okay? I'm not arguing that. Maybe he paid his dues. But here's a person who had physically assaulted his domestic partner. Physically assaulted this person. And he still got hired. And then later, as he started his career, he got drunk during training, during Zoom, during the whole stay-at-home stuff, so when we would do training on our Tuesdays off, he got drunk during the Zoom training and was cocking off to the trainers that were there, got summoned in the next day, showed up to meet with the chief deputy under the influence of alcohol. Now, I don't know if he was legally drunk or not, but he showed up under the influence of alcohol. And what did Chief Deputy Brian Howard do? He drove him home. Drove him home. And then he was put out on administrative leave until he could to make whatever arrangements were. I'm assuming it was probably for treatment or something. But the man drove drunk or not drunk. I don't know that for a fact, but the guy drove to work under the influence of alcohol and met with a law enforcement officer. Brian Howard never relinquished his post certification in the state of Minnesota. He drove under the influence of alcohol for a work meeting about his conduct the day before when he was under the influence of alcohol, and then got driven home and barely even got a slap on the wrist for actual criminal behavior. Unethical, immoral, probably criminal behavior. And Brian Howard let that go. Let it go. Let it go. So you hear you guys got a history of domestic assault and then drinks on the job and shows up on the job under the influence of alcohol and gets a ride home. A ride home. Then that's not bad enough. Another deputy, they cover up. Torgerson and Howard cover up an excessive use of force situation inside of the detention center on a Sunday afternoon during a unit-wide search. A man passively non-compliant, an old man, very old man, well, I wouldn't say he was probably about my age, but he looked like he was about 75 or 80. And I know who he is. I knew him very well, who is a cantankerous old jerk, but he was a passively non-compliant individual. He just didn't want to get out of bed. And this deputy tased him. Tased him. He wasn't violent. He wasn't threatening anyone. He wasn't threatening to hurt anybody. He just said, "I'm not getting out of bed." The corporal on duty, acting as the sergeant that day, said, "I don't care what you do, just get him out of there." So this deputy that he said it to tased this man, this old man, a man who was incredibly ill and very ill, like digits and very, very bad, like could have probably had them surgically removed. They tased him, which is a direct violation of the Olmsted County's use of force policy, because it says you do not use that level of force on an individual who is passively non-compliant. Now, you would say, well, if that's such a big deal, what happened? They put that deputy out on paid administrative leave, and then they allowed him to retire with a party, a retirement party. Does this sound like the person you want in charge? Does Brian Howard sound like the guy you want in charge of overseeing how your loved ones are treated in a traffic stop, how your loved ones are treated at a school board meeting, how your loved ones are treated during a DUI, how your loved ones are treated at a protest? Whether they're a left-wing protester or a right-wing protester or a libertarian protester, is this the guy that you want involved? Because I'll tell you, the precedence has already been set by Olmsted County for how they'll treat people who show up to peacefully protest and seek a redress of their grievances. Because I have video that demonstrates that Olmsted County deputies did threaten to arrest people at a Dover Yoda school board meeting because they wouldn't wear masks. Oh, hey, Ottertail County Veritas. I think I know who that is. I don't know which one of you is commenting. So, is it? I know it's the Hexams, but which one of you? So there again, let that sink in. This guy, I don't know if you guys can see it on the screen, but this guy, Brian Howard on the left, with Sheriff Torgerson in the middle. Brian Howard is now in charge. Now in charge of the conduct and the duties of law enforcement officials in Olmsted County. Not Rochester PD, but in the Olmsted County Patrol Division the law enforcement division. I don't have much to say about Schuler. I don't know how the things in the ADC are going to go with him in charge. I can tell you that whatever Torgerson says, he'll do. It's just what he does. Sheriff is the boss, and that's what he does. Is he looks for people who will parrot anything that he says. Whatever he says goes. He doesn't tolerate anybody talking back. He doesn't tolerate anybody pushing back. But that's how things go with him, and that's what he expects. I'm going to give you this job, so your job is to do whatever I tell you to do. And that's the last thing in the world that we need from law enforcement, my friends. That's it. That's the very last thing that we need from law enforcement. We don't need people who are just going to do whatever they're told to do. We need from the newest hire in the rank and file of law enforcement to the most senior staff. The question should always be is, one, am I protecting and serving the liberties and the freedoms of the people according to the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights? Two, is what I'm being asked to do in keeping with decency and respect for my employers, we the people? Three, is the law I'm being asked to enforce constitutional or not? And some people could say, well, hey, look, once that law is passed, then they have to enforce it. Ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine how things would have been different during the civil rights movement if deputies and police officers across the United States, instead of following the orders to remove peaceful protesters from the South and even in the North, instead of agreeing to do it, they had said, no, I'm not going to do this. I know the law says that what they're doing is illegal, but I'm not going to do this. Imagine if the officers who showed up to remove Rosa Parks from the front of the bus that day had said, the law says she's got to sit at the back of the bus, but I'm not enforcing that law. Like, we've got this mindset within conservatism that whatever the law says we have to do, and therefore because the law says it, it's lawful, and it's not. Ladies and gentlemen, it was lawful to own slaves in the United States for a very long time. It was lawful. Ladies and gentlemen, it's still lawful in the United States for babies to be murdered in utero. Does that make it right? Does that make it okay? Does that make it just? It doesn't. That's what we need the thought process of deputies and police officers and troopers to be. That's what it needs to be. And if you don't recognize that, if you can't see that as being vital, then the problem's not mine, it's yours. It's yours. Well, so some of you will know, and I had my friend, my compatriot, if you will, Wes was watching, and he's recently fought a battle in Olmsted County for the Olmsted County GOP. And as many people know, as Otter Tail County Veritas can attest to, and they talked about some of the things that happened in their Otter Tail County convention. What's it say here? 33 delegates were illegally suspended on February 11th of 2022 from attending the or was that just this year? Otter Tail County Veritas. Maybe it was this year. From attending the GOP County Convention in Otter Tail County for not supporting the Republican-endorsed primary nominee candidate. Oh, maybe that was last year. So think about that. So we know that we have problems in the Minnesota GOP. The Minnesota GOP is corrupt. It is bankrupt. That doesn't mean that every single person in the Minnesota GOP is corrupt or bankrupt. But what it does mean is that we do have a corruption problem. We do have a get along to go along problem in the Minnesota GOP. They are not interested in winning elections. But the first congressional district, the Minnesota GOP first congressional district executive committee and whatnot is met, and there was a sweeping change that was suggested, and that sweeping change was to not allow anybody who worked for the state central committee or for the county central or the district central committee, to also be paid staff for any other any candidate for office. And so this had come up for debate, and Aaron Ferris, who is the first district chair, if I remember, let me look that up. I think Aaron Ferris is the first district chair. Yeah, he's a first congressional district chair, and he's a deputy chair of the Freeborn County GOP, and he serves on 2 committees. So Aaron Ferris had this to say about the specter of this new change. I'm happy to talk to you more about this to understand your thoughts, but at first glance, I am not in support of this. My reasoning is because I don't think we should be blocking anyone from being involved if they are working for Republicans and the greater cause overall. Like, I want to keep my involvement in Olmsted County GOP as we discussed Tuesday, but something like this would keep me from being on the board if it were passed locally. I don't want to discriminate against someone helping more and more just because they're heavily involved. I want to hear more about your thoughts before voting on it to go in understanding this as well. Thank you. Have a great weekend, Aaron Ferris. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that he says that we don't want to keep people from working for Republicans, okay, I understand that. You want people who are working, right? You do. You want people who are working in the political world to work for the party that you are part of. I get that. But what these people are asking is that we remove the special interest aspect of you getting paid by a candidate to work for their campaign or work in their congressional office, whether it be in DC or here locally, and then also representing the people of the GOP in your district while getting paid. That is a massive conflict of interest. And we have seen this play out time and time and time and time again. This is how these weak-kneed, milquetoast, fence-sitting normicons that run for office stay in power, is that they get their lackeys in positions of power within the party in the entire state. And then they come up with things like, we're going to kick you out of the party, or we're not going to let you be part of the convention, or whatever the case might be, because you're not supporting the endorsed candidate. Never mind the fact that Kurt Dowd here in the state of Minnesota ran candidates against endorsed candidates like Mark Bishofsky, who had an 82% endorsement first vote out of the gate in 2022. He ran a challenger against him in the primaries, and that weakened Mark Bishofsky so that Mark ended up losing to the Democrat. They did the same thing with Stephen Lowell. Because Stephen had the audacity to talk about the Second Amendment the way the Second Amendment was meant to be understood, which is we need to vote for change before our only change is by bullets. Now, what's the problem with that? He's literally saying that we need to vote for change before our only recourse is change through bullets. There's no, and I'm paraphrasing what he said. It's a horrible paraphrase. But the Minnesota GOP went after him, Kurt Dowd in particular. Lowell was an endorsed candidate. This is the problem that the Minnesota GOP has. And there's another problem for people in the GOP. And this is going to upset a lot of you. But the other problem is the worship of Donald Trump. Okay? Donald Trump is not a small government, traditional conservative, and he's not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination, folks. He's not. And he might be a brilliant businessman when it comes to how he continues to protect his own assets, but he is not a conservative, and he is not a small government person. Donald Trump had nothing to do with the Republican Party until he saw an opening in 2016. Nothing. He rubs elbows and hobnobs with people on the left and the right, and he doesn't care what perspective they have as long as he can make some money off of them. And that's fine. That's what businessmen do, right? Don't have a problem with that. Do not have a problem with that in the least. because I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I do believe that we should be free in our culture, in our society, to do business with whoever we choose to do business with. If you want to be a Hispanic business and you want to only do business with Mexicans, or Mexicans who speak Spanish, and not and no one who speaks English, you're free to do that. That's to your detriment. If you're a conservative Christian bookstore owner and you refuse to hire or do business with people who are not like you, if you don't want to do business with a Muslim, if you don't want to do business with an LGBTQ person, if you don't want to hire someone who is Muslim, if you don't want to hire somebody who's LGBTQ, that's your business. That's your business. You're free to do that. The freedom of association. Same for Muslims. Muslims don't want to do business with non-Muslims, fine. If you're a black business owner and you don't want to do business with white people, that's your business. Nobody should be able to tell you what to do with your business in that regard. So I don't have a problem with Donald Trump making money. And as Chad has said, you don't get to be a billionaire without screwing some people over. It happens, you know? Money making can be a cutthroat thing. But my problem is not with him being a business owner. My problem is with the stupidity of the things that he says. I want to find it. Yeah, okay, there we go. Hold on, bear with me for just a second here. Here we go, folks. We're going to watch this.
Will end the leftist takeover of school discipline and juvenile justice. Many of these carjackers and criminals are 13, 14, and 15 years old. I will order the education and justice departments to overhaul federal standards on disciplining minors. So when troubled youth are out in control, they're out on the streets and they're going wild, we will stop it. The consequences are swift, certain, and strong, and they will know that. Will end.
Now, some of you are saying, TC, what's your problem with this? What don't you want schools to be safe? Don't you want there to be discipline in the schools? Did you hear that? Donald Trump says when he's president, he's going to order the DOJ and the United States Department of Education to take over disciplining in local public schools. And then he, added, these carjackers and on and on and on and on and on. And I'm like, okay, great. I get it. The schools are out of control, but the solution is not to order another unconstitutional, and the Department of Justice is unconstitutional. There should be no federal law enforcement. The FBI needs to go. The DOJ needs to go. The Department of Education needs to go. You do not order them to take over disciplining in schools where you don't think discipline's happening enough. That's federal overreach, folks. This is not a small government person. This is not a pro-conservative value person. This is not a pro-libertarian value person. Donald Trump doesn't have conservative values. He doesn't have libertarian values. He doesn't have small government values. He believes that as president, he has the power, he has the authority, and he has the right to do that, whether you like it or not. But so many people are out there supporting him. Oh, that's a great idea. Why? Because you like him? Folks, you got to pull your heads out of your derrieres. You're going to up in a colonoscopy waiting room with Governor Walz to find out how far your head is up your derriere. That's what it's come down to. That's what you're left with. Period. End of story. I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if you unsubscribe from me. This is asinine. What Trump said here is another expansion of federal powers. This is anti-Jeffersonian. This is federalist level stuff here. This is horrible. This is not good for America. This is not good for the Republic. This is not good for us. But you're all out there clapping. Yay, Donald Trump is going to save the country. Like, no, get over it. It's done. He's done. You voting for Donald Trump proves that you don't care about your own principles and your own values. You're not offending me. Like, I think voting at the federal level, especially for president and senator and House of Representatives, is a joke. It is a joke. You vote for whoever they tell you to vote for, and that's who wins. That's it. They determine that stuff well ahead of time. That's why you got to focus your efforts at the local level. And I had an argument with the guy yesterday about this. And it took him about 10 posts before he started threatening me and told me he was going to, make me have to eat yogurt the rest of my life because he was going to kick my ass if he ever met me in person. And I critiqued Trump to his face. Look, people, it's time for us to get off. For those of you, not us, I've never been on that train. But if you're on the Trump train, it's time for you to get off. He's a train wreck, literally. Like, it's worse than what happened in East Palestine, Ohio. He is a worse train wreck than the train wreck in East Palestine, Ohio. Because he just opens his mouth and he blathers on and on and on and on and on. And he doesn't care whether or not what he's saying is in keeping with the values of the people that he says he represents. But you're okay with that. You're perfectly fine with it because you like him, and because you like him, it makes it okay. How much do we hate authoritarianism? How much do we hate the fascist reality of what has become of the Democrats in the United States? We despise it, right? We absolutely despise it. Well, if we despise it, what are you doing about it? Why are you continuing to vote for somebody that has authoritarian values, authoritarian mindset, large government perspectives? What are you doing about it? If you're not saying to yourself, this guy does not represent me at this point, you're a lost cause. You're a lost cause. If you think Donald Trump represents you still, you're a lost cause. He abandoned the people that went to prison for him. People who should not have gone to prison, by the way, on January 6th. He abandoned those people. He's still out there shilling for the shot. Largest expansion of the federal budget in the history of the United States. It's under him, under his decision making. He expanded the federal deficit and the federal budget more than all of the previous presidents combined. He didn't fire Birx. He didn't fire Fauci. He didn't fire Maddox. He hired them, and then he let them do whatever the hell they wanted to do. He put them in the positions that they were in, and he decided to take their advice. He declared a federal state of emergency. He used the Defense Authorization Act to force private business to make masks and ventilators. Ventilators that were then later used in a particular protocol for a particular virus that we now know has pretty serious problems. But you're all out there applauding him because he's the best president we've ever had. Not even close. Not even close. In my lifetime, not even close. But we're not done. Because he can't stop himself. He has to keep saying stupid things. And it's not, you know what? I'm not even going to give him the benefit of the doubt that it's stupid. He keeps saying things that expose what he really believes he has the power to do. And I know people are all on board with this one because I've heard people talking about how wonderful it is. Here we go, friends. That's not the video I wanted. I wanted to actually hear the video. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, so Trump has proposed these freedom cities, and maybe this is it. I can't find it right now, but Donald Trump has said he wants to build 10 freedom cities. He wants to build them. He wants to build freedom cities. So he wants, and I think part of this is a good idea. The federal state owns 1/3 of the entire landmass of the United States, which is absolutely ridiculous. But now he wants the federal state to sell some of that off so that they can build these freedom cities. And he's going to incentivize these freedom cities. Well, how does the federal state incentivize anything? They take tax dollars from people and then give it to other people to get them to do things. Exactly, Chad. Chad says freedom cities equal 15-minute cities. I absolutely agree with you, and I am working on bringing a person who has done the deep dives on the 15-minute cities. We're going to be having somebody on here if I can make the time, or not make the time, but find the person who's just right for the time to be able to sit down and have that conversation. Like, ladies and gentlemen, these freedom cities are nothing more. These 10 freedom cities are nothing more than an example of the 15-minute cities. And if you don't know what the 15-minute cities are, you just let me know. I'll help you find out. I mean, they're already orchestrating and implementing this in places like Oxford, England. But Donald Trump wants to incentivize that. And here's a guy who has suffered at the hands of law enforcement. He's suffered at the hands of law enforcement through the FBI. Look at how the FBI treated him. And what's he said? We're going to continue to back our law enforcement because they have to do what they have to do. Like, that's not how that works. And I've done plenty of videos about this, talking about, you guys need to wake up. Law enforcement's not on your side anymore. They haven't been for a long time, but it's gotten worse over the last 5 years, but especially over the last 3. Law enforcement is not on the side of the conservatives and the libertarians of this, the Mises type libertarians of this country. They are not. They are an enforcement arm of the local state or the federal state. And here's Donald Trump, who has been treated like crap by law enforcement at numerous levels, saying we're going to back law enforcement. Like, the guy's a sellout, folks. He wants to incentivize people to have babies. He wants to pay you to have children. And everybody's like, well, we got to do that. We have to do that. Why? Because we're being outbred. Like, look, people, we are not going to win the war of ideology. We're not going to win a social cultural war by having more babies. And here's why. Because a lot of you are going to have more babies because Donald Trump tells you to have more babies, but you're going to turn around and you're going to send your kids off to a government-run indoctrination center that you call the local public school, where you are going to have your values pissed on, tread on, and crapped on all day long. Because the number of teachers who are willing to espouse traditional conservative values is shrinking every day, just like within the law enforcement world. It's shrinking every day. But you're okay with it. You back them up. So you're going to have more kids just to have those kids put into the meat grinder that is government-run centers of indoctrination. State-run centers of indoctrination. So what good is it going to do to have more children if you're going to let them be indoctrinated? And as Wes said here a little while ago, they are manufacturing consent. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the entire purpose of the state-run schools. Manufacture consent to teach people to be compliant to whatever the authority might be. That's it. End of story, end of discussion. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like me, but that's absolutely true. Donald Trump is not your ally. Donald Trump's not draining the swamp. He is the swamp. He is a swamp creature. And it doesn't do anybody any good who's in the swamp to drain the swamp because they need the swamp to survive. He's playing a role, is what he's doing. He's playing a role. And so many of you are suckered into this. And even worse, so many of you are suckered into the Q crap that goes along with it. And if you guys aren't familiar, and I'm still working on getting Michael Rechtenwald on, who is a former Trotskyite, former Marxist who has become a liberty-loving libertarian, small L libertarian type, who's pointing out all of the tactics of the left. And he and I have had some conversation about the honeypot that is Q. It looks just like Operation Truth in the Soviet Union, in the early days of the Soviet Union. It's like page for page, word for word, exactly the same plan, and so many of you are falling for it. I'm still seeing people sharing pictures. A friend of mine shared one with me yesterday. I'll see if I can find it. See if I can find it. Let's see here. Where are you at there? Yeah, I got it. I'll show it to you right now. Here we go. Let's take a look. Here we go. This picture that I'm going to show you is how bad it's gotten. Hillary after execution. So this person is purporting that this is a picture of Hillary Clinton dead after she was executed by the white hats who are coming in to rescue this country under the control of Donald Trump. This is how ridiculous this has gotten, my friends. And you guys fall for this crap. You keep saying, it's almost time. It's almost time. It's almost time. It's almost time. He's coming they're coming back. I have people still telling me Donald Trump's going to be put back in the White House tomorrow, next week. Hillary's going to be executed. And then this picture pops up. What's wrong with these people? These people are idiots. They're morons. Because they've bought into the lie that somehow he's an outsider. He's not. Right, Chad. I thought they executed her in 2017, right? It's over and over and over again. It's a different date, different time, all the time. And everybody falls for it. Just happens constantly. There's just no way around trying to explain to these people that what they're holding on to is never going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's unhealthy, honestly. It's an obsession that this one person is going to save anything, and so they just sit back and they trust the plan, and since they're trusting the plan, they don't really have to do that much. Just trust the plan. No, don't trust the plan. Get out and do something locally. And I told this individual that was mad at me and threatening me yesterday, I told him, like, he goes, well, you didn't tell me who you support. Who are you supporting? I'm like, like, one, I don't have anybody I'm supporting for president right now. I don't see any good front runners within the Libertarian Party or the Republican Party. I just don't see anybody that I have that much faith in that, if you want to use that word. I don't see anybody that I have that much faith in, so to speak. But that, be that as it may, my focus is on local elections, school boards, city councils, county commissions, mayors. Those are the positions we need to take. And we need to put people in there that understand nullification. And I'm going to be bringing somebody on to talk about nullification. I'm also going to be working on bringing somebody on to talk about a peaceful divorce, about secession. It's like, secession's not legal. It's not constitutional. No, that's untrue. Absolutely untrue. This is a union, a republic of mutually beneficial agreement. Supposed to be. And the worst president in the history of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, did go a long ways to ruining that for us. But peaceful secession, peaceful divorce, is something that we should be talking about. How much longer can you live with people, calling them your fellow Americans, knowing that they hate everything that you believe in? Everything. Not just your political ideology, but they hate everything about you. Chat, maybe that one is a clone and they had to kill her again. that's oh, that's why this is mostly TC's musings tonight. Folks, it is time for you guys to wake up and realize, like, your focus is all wrong. Like, I got news for you. Like, I'm proud of what Wes has done with his group of people up in Olmsted County. They flipped the script and looks like they've taken back the Republican Party in Olmsted County. But it's a long fight. It's a long fight. And you're not going to take over the party in Minnesota, the Republican Party in Minnesota, with sound, level-headed rocks and cows conservatives between now and 2024. It's not going to happen. It's a scrap. It's going to be a fight. And we have to start asking ourselves, are there candidates in other positions in other parties, if you will, that represent us? Where are the candidates who are consistent on issues? Like, if you got a candidate who's out there talking about my Second Amendment and yeah, like, get behind them. But if then they turn around in the same breath go, and I want law enforcement to be able to have the power to take your marijuana away from you, that's a person with inconsistent values. Think about it. So I'm going to share one more thing with you guys, okay? And the thing that I want to share with you is about a friend of mine. Her name is Laura Rear. I had her on my show last spring. Laura is she has a doctorate in nurse practitionery. She has so she is a nurse practitioner, but she's very much freedom oriented when it comes to medical decisions. And she was terminated from the organization she worked for refusing the jab. And she went out on her own, and she decided that she was going to do something about what she saw as a great problem in the medical profession. And in the interview that I did with her, a conversation I had with her, she said that we no longer do healthcare, we do sick care. We're not really interested in treating people. We're interested in mitigating their symptoms. And I just saw the message that I got from her. I just saw it today, but it's from a couple of weeks ago, back on February Back on February 20th, Laura sent me a picture, and it says, "Life throws us lemons sometimes. Our house burnt to the ground. We're all safe, but completely devastated. Prayers needed if you have them." So my friend Laura, who is the operator of Rocky Mountain Health and Healing, and you guys should be able to see the phone number there. She does practice in Minnesota. She practices in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Idaho, or Wyoming. And so, yeah, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. And I think there might be another one. But she does do appointments by the phone. She does telemed. And if you're within a service area in the state of Montana, within 100 miles of Helena, she'll actually do house calls. She has helped people walk through the coof. She's helped heal people of the coof. She's a down-to-earth lady, and she is a phenomenal human being. And her husband are now homeless. I want you guys, if you would, to help her through prayer, positive feelings, or thoughts. If you need medical care, call her, reach out to her. She can help you. She will help you. I can attest to that. She will help you. And so this is a blow to anybody. But for a person who has started over and is building a business from the ground up, this is definitely a blow. And so the last thing that I want to remind you guys of is that between now and the end of April, I am doing another fundraiser for my friends Bob and Sue. They're from up in the Otter Tail County area. They are their son Garrett is still fighting to recover from a horrible incident back in the beginning of December where he was hit by a truck. The details of that are not in and of themselves at the moment important. It's something that will definitely need to be addressed. But they're working on trying to find a way to bring him home. But they also just found out that where Bob has been staying so he can be by Garrett's bedside every day are now going to refuse to allow them to stay if they refuse to get the juice in his arm. But I am doing a fundraiser, 15% of my proceeds from everything from my YouTube earnings to my Subscribestar earnings, my Rumble earnings, any of the products that people, merchandise that people buy from me, 15% of that will be going to them at the end of April, no matter how much it is. We need to be getting each other's backs, folks. This stuff needs to be happening. These arm length transactions are where this matters. This is how we make a difference. You find a neighbor that has chickens. You buy your eggs from your neighbor. You buy your poultry from your neighbor. You find a neighbor that raises, out in the country, that raises cows, raises pigs. You do business with them. Offer something of value. Make a difference. Got a lot of things that are going to be happening here for me coming up. I am going to be doing a lot more First Amendment auditing. Had an interesting day on Saturday. I went out and did some auditing over in the city of Austin, Minnesota. The video is up. It was uneventful. I had one interaction with one deputy from Mower County, and it was a great interaction. And other than that, it was great, which is exactly the way we should want it to go. I know that stuff only hits big when there's conflict. But we should want, from First Amendment auditors and First Amendment auditing, we should want to go out and have no problems. We should want that no one calls the cops. We should want that when the cops are called, the cops come in and do their job, and there's no conflict. That they don't try to violate our rights, that they don't try and infringe upon our liberties, and that they correct the people who are trying to use them to do that and tell them, look, I'm not doing that because I don't have the authority to do that, and that's an infringement upon their liberties and their freedoms. I'm going to stand on my oath. That's what we should want. I know it's boring, but it's what we should want. And trust me, I've had enough of run-ins with law enforcement over the last few years, infringing on freedoms and liberties, that I know that it happens more often than it doesn't. But you guys keep your nose to the grindstone. Keep your ears open, your eyes open. Let me know what you hear, what you see. If there's things you want me to talk about, or if there's stuff that you think needs to be talked about, let me know. And then I got 2 really exciting guests coming up. 2 very exciting guests coming up. They're both coming on at different times, and we're going to be talking about 2 different facets of the Oklahoma City Murrah building bombing. Both of them are experts in this story. And one of them is Jose from the Tower Gang. And he is a phenomenal asset, and he is going to be coming on up here in a couple of towards the end of the month. And then I'm not going to mention the other one until I get a confirmation, but he has inside details about different law enforcement officers who were scrubbed from from their involvement as far as investigatory. And I'm also working on finding some people to talk to us about Ruby Ridge and what actually went down there. And most of us already know, but I'm working on people who have done the legwork, done the deep dives into Ruby Ridge. State malfeasance, federal level, state law enforcement level malfeasance has been happening for a very long time, my friends. Very long time. And these guys are going to help us blow the doors off of the patrol vehicle, if you will. Metaphorically. Do not advocate for violence or the initiation of the use of force. But it's going to be very exciting conversations. So I'm gonna go. My Monday night musings tend to go 2.5 hours, and I'm just not going to do that tonight. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Head over, order some merchandise. If you want to be able to help Laura out, you reach out to me and I'll see what we can do there. If you want to help Bob and Sue out directly with their expenses and helping get Garrett home, let me know. I can get you the link to their GoFundMe or GiveSendGo, whatever one it is. And we will see you again soon. And if you haven't gone over and watched any of my quick videos from that I put out over the last few days as it regards RCTC, go over and do that. And I also have one up that I just put up this afternoon from an experience I had on my way home from work with a state patrol officer who was clearly not responding to an emergency, but still felt like he was justified in speeding and taking up the entire left-hand lane of Highway 52 South in the heart of Rochester, where everybody else was going the marked speed limit of 60, and he was passing us, pretty much most of us, like we were sitting still. So, okay, maybe I might be exaggerating a little bit, but he was still speeding. So, my friends, until next time, fight for your liberties. They're yours. Fight for your freedoms. They belong to you. And Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at